right. All right, you ready?
I think we're ready.
Okay. Good morning. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Today is Thursday, February 13th. Nicole, do you want to do roll call?
Alyssa Shank.
Here.
Jeannie McQueenie. Sorry, of course.
Perfect time.
Aaron Zielinski.
Present.
Colin Laird.
Here.
Randy Copeland.
Here.
Francesca Colbert.
Here.
Ingrid Wisso.
I'm back here.
We have a bar.
All right, first order of business is to approve the minutes from the January 9th meeting. Does anyone have any questions, changes? If not, I would take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Great. All right, next up we have public comment. I know a lot of people are here probably to make public comment. We just ask that you come up, right? You want them to come up here?
Yeah.
Just state your name. Are we setting a time limit? 3 minutes. 3-minute time limit. And doesn't matter, whoever wants to come up first. Don't be shy. We're glad to have you all here.
Oh,
Hi.
hi, Robbie O'Mara. I live in Glenwood Springs. I'm here because I saw John Harmon's post recently on Facebook that's talking about putting an alternative lane for the buses that would come from 8th Street to 23rd or something like that. And we walk that all the time. And that idea of putting a bus lane right next to this beautiful place that you have to walk is a very, very bad idea. So I'm voicing against that. It's a beautiful riparian area. And I suggest everybody walk it from 8th Street up to at the end of County Road 154. And look what a jewel we have in the valley in Glenwood Springs. So I'm totally against that proposal. We have value. It's a quiet, peaceful route. Tons of people walk it, ride it, bike it, e-bike it. There's people out there every single day. And we need to keep that as a bike path through town only. Only for bikes, nothing else. Leave it the way it is. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Next, anybody?
Good morning. My name's Ray Tenney, and I live at 928 Cooper Avenue in Glenwood, about 2 blocks from here. I appreciate the opportunity to address this board on a matter of critical importance to me and maybe other Glenwood residents. This RFTA board has accomplished many things to improve public transit in our valley. As this RFTA board continues to pursue transportation improvements, I hope you do not forget you serve communities, not just bus stops. The focus and momentum with which this RFTA board is pursuing measures to save the bus commuters of this valley time is often baffling to me. On one hand, this RFTA board refuses to endorse the one single measure which would save its ridership the most time, a straight shot entrance to Aspen. Meanwhile, this RFTA board is intent on quietly pursuing its own private fenced expressway through downtown Glenwood Springs to save its commuters a couple of minutes. How likely is it that RFTA out-of-service buses will also use this expressway? RFTA's expressway through Glenwood Springs would change forever the character and usage of the Rio Grande Trail through Glenwood Springs and adjacent city parkland. RFTA's bus expressway will be fenced to prevent buses from hitting our pets, wildlife, and citizens. Fencing across the Rio Grande corridor and rerouting the trail to the more circuitous route depicted by RFTA along the river will render the relocated trail unusable for many, including Glenwood Springs commuters, preschoolers headed to the campground or to a playground, and those Glenwood Springs citizens looking for a quick lunch walk. RFTA's fenced and gated expressway will separate downtown from the river corridor we find so valuable. I urge RFTA to focus on more fruitful and less impactful ways to improve RFTA's function and consider environmental justice when imposing their will on Glenwood Springs while avoiding improvements in other locations which would help the very workers that serve them. I look forward to your well-funded NEPA process on RFTA's through Glenwood Expressway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just quickly before the next person comes up, Sam and Tom are both online, but they said there's nothing there. And so I don't know if they're on the wrong link or what's going on, but Tom just texted me. So,
I'll forward him the.
but yeah, Sam Rose, Tom Fritstein, both applying, both not in this meeting. I don't know where they are.
They're on another meeting.
They must, they're on WebEx, but they said it's blank, there's nothing there.
To the card, send them the
So,
links.
I
anyway,
did see two.
next person can come on up, sorry about that.
Look, there's two people on this.
Good morning. With no microphones, I'm hearing challenge, so you'll have to bear with me. My name is Diane Reynolds. I'm a resident of Glenwood Springs. I'm also a committee member for the Take a Minute, Slow Down in Town campaign. Perhaps you've all seen our signs. We debuted within the community over 5 years ago, just before COVID happened, and then we were sidelined like so many other people were. At the recent Highway 82 corridor study, I had the pleasure of meeting Dave Johnson, who encouraged me to appear before you today. I'm here with two requests. Please, number one, please actively stress with all of your drivers in your organization the importance of driving the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit within any town they are routed through. Set the pace and others will follow. Number two, please consider blowing your horn more. The sides of your buses can be traveling visible advocates, not only for riding, but supporting community values. Potential messaging. The number of vehicles you have removed from the daily commute, which eases the road for others. CO2 reduction that you have fostered. This is a huge thing. Touting that anyone that is distracted, addicted, can relax and ride while crashes are avoided. Help keep Colorado the healthiest state in the nation by walking to and from the bus stations. You could also add on to that, travel locally and see the community from a new perspective, whether you are walking or riding the bus. You could remind drivers of the 2-second rule for safe distances between vehicles on the roadways. Even you could post Highway 82 facts, which are the number of traffic lights they're going to encounter on their daily commute, to the number of vehicles that they're going to be sharing the road with. The list could go on. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm hopeful that we can count on your involvement in this ongoing campaign. I think united we'll stand and divided we will all fall.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Next, any other comments? No. Sorry. You can take over now.
When you walk,
Hi.
Hi, Betsy Seward. I live in Glenwood Springs. Word on the street is that RFTA senior staff is expressing to others that this board already has a preferred alternative for the BRT alignment, and that is putting buses on the Rio Grande Trail. Regardless of this rumor having any bias or any basis, I ask this board and your staff to be more transparent. Be more transparent about this NEPA process with press releases and robust public outreach to solicit participation upon accepting these federal dollars. I also ask that you and your executive staff be sensitive to this perceived bias and assure that all information dissemination be inclusive, objective, and without favoritism. Thanks for allowing me.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? And we were able to get, Tom says Sam, Paul, Michael, me are all on, but they can't see or hear
There's
us.
apparently 2 meetings
Oh,
and most folks are in the meeting we're in.
okay,
There are a couple in the other meeting and we're trying to retrieve them.
okay. Still can't, it's hard to still figure it out, right? Okay, I'm gonna, turn it over to Greg,
Thank you.
since he is the chair.
I apologize to everyone. There was a rollover on 82 right by Carbondale that pretty much stuffed things up. And so I took the back way. By the time I was done with the back way, it was open, but I wasn't sure.
Well, it's a prettier drive.
It's a much prettier drive. But anyway, I apologize to everyone. I'm going to open this up to board member comments right now and then ask if there are any items added to the agenda from Kurt or crew. Any items?
And I would be happy to respond to the public comment too.
Great, thank you. I was going to invite the board too as well, but if you'd like to do that, I'll start with you.
Okay. Kurt Ravenschlag, CEO RFTA. Really appreciate the public who came today to speak. I'm sure there's some board members that are confused on what they're speaking to. So I'll help with that. It sounds like the community is maybe more informed than staff sometimes. So since our last board meeting, RFTA had been awarded a grant through the RAISE program. So that was a $1 million, roughly $1 million planning grant for us to continue evaluating. It's an alternatives analysis. It's not a NEPA process. So for those that were here about 3-4 years ago, we had conducted a alternatives analysis to evaluate how we would extend the BRT from 27th Street to West Glenwood to be able to connect to I-70 and capture traffic coming from I-70 and transition them to BRT. That study evaluated a whole host of alternatives of how the BRT could extend from 27th Street. During that process, we narrowed the alternatives down to 2 viable options. It was looking at Grand Avenue, of being able to provide a bus-only lane for the bus to operate Grand Avenue, as well as looking at the RFTA-owned Rio Grande corridor as an option. The study at that point in time sort of ran out of resources and the ability to carry that forward further, to continue to identify a locally preferred alternative. And the pandemic hit as well, so we shifted priorities. So that study concluded with 2 viable options, one using the Rio Grande corridor, one using Grand Avenue. So this grant funding that we just received from the RAISE grant program was to continue that alternatives analysis, continue evaluating whether using the Rio Grande corridor or Grand Avenue is the preferred option for extending BRT. So there won't be a NEPA process. There may be some NEPA scoping involved in this, but this is just an alternatives analysis to determine which one of the options is the preferred option. And from a timing standpoint, we're likely not going to start this planning work for 1 to 2 years. So it's not anything that's happening immediately. We have 3 years to obligate the funds, so it'll likely be a project that starts in 1 to 2 years from now.
Can I ask you a question, Eric? One of the people mentioned that there would be, and I don't remember this from a few years ago, a fence that would sort of block off the river. I don't remember that being part of the.
No, all of those details have not been worked out yet. So right now, the idea, there was some conceptual ideas of how the bus could operate in the Rio Grande corridor, but this next phase would be diving into all of those aspects of which one of those options and how that would actually function, and where there would be crossings and what mitigation might need to be made for either one of those alternatives.
And also, if we were to go on the current Rio Grande, the Rio Grande would be moved. There would still be access
Yes.
to the Rio Grande, correct?
Thank you for that. Under no scenario would the Rio Grande Trail be removed. Thanks, Colin.
I just want to say, David just came in. Did you get stuck in traffic also?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty nasty. Anyway, I just wanted to recognize that David Knight's here. Go ahead, question.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Kirk, could you just speak to, we might, in the process of doing the study, come up with a preferred alternative, but what does that mean and where are we in that? It doesn't mean it's being done.
Yeah,
It's
this
just
is
like
a
it's just
fairly
a
long
study.
process.
Yeah.
So right now, that grant that we just received would be used just to identify the alternative. So once the alternative's identified, then we start turning our focus to what are the next steps? The next steps would be likely a NEPA process, if that still exists when that time comes. So then we would go through NEPA and then we'd go into engineering, final design, and then construction. So that could be a 5 to 10 year process.
And my understanding of something like this, and it actually relates to what Aspen is struggling with right now, is that RFTA has limited powers to make the the city of Glenwood Springs support. Just like we can't force Aspen to make a decision about their entrance. We're a completely different organization from those discussions.
Regarding that, just Aspen.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we're just a stakeholder. So that's a decision that'll be made by CDOT. There's currently a record of decision in place from 1998. There's a preferred alternative that was identified through that process. If there were something else to be evaluated, they'd have to reopen that NEPA process to evaluate new alternatives, which RFTA then would be a key stakeholder in those discussions.
I mean, when you guys brought this to the board for applying, I remember Shelley at the time, the Glenwood Springs rep, raised some concerns, and I think we had a good discussion that this is scoping. This is trying to understand what our options are. This is not shoving it down Glenwood Springs Road. Glenwood Springs is a key partner in all this, and we want to make it work for them, knowing that there are transit issues that, you know, we could just leave it as it is and everybody's stuck in traffic, or we can look at options. And I think that's what this study is for. It's about options. It's not, there's no decision is coming out of this other than, oh, it's going to be very expensive. Oh, we're going to have to do this. Oh, here's an issue. Yeah.
And when we stopped the project back in 2020, it was primarily because we weren't resourced to adequately have that conversation with the public. And that's what this grant is primarily geared towards, is having a robust conversation with the communities impacted.
Other board comment or questions? Okay, I'm going to keep us. Move over to the consent agenda. We've got A, B, C, and D. We have an authorization to submit the 60-year 2024 protect grant for the debris flow mitigation project. We've got authorization to submit a Garfield County Federal Mineral Lease District grant application. Underground fuel tanks replacement. We've got an authorization to execute an amendment to the 2023 service operating agreement for regional bike share. And we've got authorization to execute IGA between Eagle County and Orange Forest Transit Authority for the traffic and parking improvements to Delta Park and Ride. Does anybody want to pull these, or do we want to in a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda items A through D.
I'll second it.
Jeannie and Alyssa. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This is moving information updates. Kurt, you're back on.
Yes, and I am trying to get caught up myself here. Okay, so we wanted to provide a update. We know there's been a lot of discussion nationally right now just on status of federal grant funding. On the page 53 of the board packet, we have a list of grants that we have identified that could be potentially reviewed by the federal granting entities to determine if these grant awards still align with priorities of the administration. So if you see the table there on page 53, the ones that are highlighted in red are probably the two that we'd be most concerned about because those have been awarded, but they're not under contract yet with the granting entities. And the first one is our FTA 5339B grant. This was for phases 6A, 6B, and 8, which are the new West Glenwood Springs Transit Center, the administration building, and we have a storage building as part of that. That's a $32.8 million grant. The other one is the one that we were just discussing. So we just received notice of award from FTA on the RAISE grant to conduct that planning study here in Glenwood Springs to extend the BRT. That one's also awarded, but not under contract. So those two are probably the ones we're most concerned about. The other ones have been awarded and they're obligated, but we just listed them because they could possibly be under further review as well. So at this point in time, that's about as much as we know in terms of what impacts there might be on our grant funding based on what we're hearing out of our federal granting entities. Our grant partners don't have a lot of information to share with the grantees at this point in time, but we're in regular contact with them, and I know they're definitely going to try to advocate for these programs since they recommended them in the first place for award. So we're also working with Sustainable Strategies, who helps RFTA with our various advocacy and outreach with our congressional delegation, and they're advising us on how to proceed with any information that we can share with our delegation that can help support these projects that they already lobbied for RFTA to receive. So I'd be happy to take any questions if there's any regarding that.
Colin?
So Kurt, are we, with the larger grant, are we in a situation where we have approvals, design, we've got contractors lined up, and now we're just having to wait?
Yeah, we do have a set schedule. We're trying to get this ready to break ground this year. We just went through the entitlement process with the city of Glenwood Springs, and we just got approvals for all aspects of that expansion there at the Glenwood Maintenance Facility. We're set to go to bid this summer for this project. So any delays on the grant funding would definitely impact that schedule for us to be able to go to bid and get under construction.
If things were normal, what would be the expected timeline to receive the monies?
So the next step is the contracting piece with FTA. And that was set to occur between now and early summer, June. And then we would go to bid at that point. And then the way the grant funding works is it's a drawdown. So you submit invoices against the grant and then you receive funding as you draw down against it.
So is the plan to still progress towards that, as if
That's how we're moving right now. Our hope is that we can still get that grant under contract between now and June. But right now everybody's kind of just, they don't know what to do.
Thank you.
Kurt, can I ask, how we're in touch with Sustainable Strategies and we're in touch with our representatives. I didn't know this one was in jeopardy. What do the senators have to say? Do you have any?
Yeah, so our senators were both really key in us receiving this grant. So this is one we spoke to them about last year when we went to Washington. They did advocate on our behalf with the DOT for us to receive this grant. So they know the importance that it has to this region. We're working with sustainable strategies on communications with them just to remind them of the importance that this grant has for RFTA and this region's mobility. We're also working with sustainable strategies to determine how to engage with our new Congressman Hurd, because we haven't had any relationship developed with him yet. So we're working on getting that established.
And will you be reaching out to the board for assistance with letter writing, phone calls, lobbying? That may
Likely.
be a public effort.
That's possible for sure.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're on top of that and do whatever we can. Thanks. Okay. Other questions? Keep going.
Yeah, I did want to, on a lighter note, this past summer, as we've been, as Dan and I were going through our transition of his last year in retirement and then being into the new role in September, our leadership team this past summer worked with David Knapp, who is our leadership development coach. And we went through a process where we were able to review our existing values as an organization and identify what we felt were going to be values that would be relevant for the new RFTA and the RFTA going forward. So we just wanted to bring that to your attention, that we spent several weeks this past summer working with David and our leadership team, with all of our directors and chief executive team, to review the values of the organization. And we came up with seven new values that are stewardship, integrity, respect, excellence, accountability, collaboration, and adaptability. This has been something that we've been able to start rolling out in the organization. We had a supervisor summit in October where this was a key opportunity for us to deliver these values and let people understand sort of how we intend to use these values in terms of managing RFTA day to day going forward. It's how we'll recognize and reward employees, but also hold all of each other accountable as well to how we want to conduct business as an organization. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. This was something I know that we've, as a leadership team, have been excited about. I think the organization is as well. We feel like these are more in line as values. As you may remember, our previous values were more service related, about providing on-time, efficient, effective, safe, reliable services. And we felt this was more in line with how we want to conduct ourselves as an organization. And then I think Mike has a quick update on our sales tax exemption issue that we've communicated with you all about regarding our housing project in Glenwood Springs and the sales tax exemption issue we ran into.
Thanks, Kurt. Just an update. I'll just do a refresher. If you recall, the Colorado Department of Revenue had denied RFTA's sales tax exemption on the hotel conversion project in Glenwood Springs for RFTA employee housing. And so we're working through their process, and we have a pre-hearing schedule that we're preparing for with our legal team and staff. And so we're in the process of gathering the pre-hearing data certificate, which includes a list of all the legal issues being determined, statement of facts, all the exhibits and attachments, and then also a list of witnesses and just some summary of their testimony. It's difficult to know how long that process will take, but this is the path that we're moving towards with the Department of Revenue. As that process unfolds, we also want to just point out that RFTA can appeal any adverse ruling on that, with that process. However, concurrently, we're also working on a legislative solution, and that we're working, we have shared some proposed amendments to the Regional Transportation Authority Act to explicitly allow employee housing as a power of the RTAs, not just for RFTA, but RTAs across the state, because we know the importance of to provide housing for the essential workers to run the transit system. And so we're coordinating with CASTA on that effort, and so we'll just keep the board updated with how that process unfolds. Anything else you want to add?
No, the main issue is, surprisingly to me, the Department of Revenue has taken the position that providing employee housing for important employees is not within the governmental function of the Regional Transportation Authority, which I don't agree with. And we met with the Department of Revenue, and they adhered to their position on the belief that employee housing is proprietary and not governmental. And I think we have the support of Senator Winter in CASTA, and we proposed revisions that I hope the state legislature will clarify, because I think that employee housing would be clearly within the implied authority, if not stated directly, of a Regional Transportation Authority.
Thanks, Paul. Comments, questions, Colin, and then Jeannie, and then Dave.
I'm not sure. Can you clarify? Our local governments would be exempt if they built housing.
Well, that's an argument that we could make because we're a collaboration. And, that's another, well, it may be or may not. I mean, depending on the Department of Revenue. So the clear way to resolve it is just insert the word employee housing in your authorized powers.
Yeah. And final question, have we been in touch with Elizabeth Velasco, our representative, giving her update of potentially this legislation?
We have worked primarily with CASTA and Senator Winter. We had a meeting with her and her administrative assistant.
I don't see it as an issue, but it'd be great to keep her in the loop since this is her district.
Yeah, the Department of Revenue was in that council, but she was not.
I know Dan had a meeting with her.
Yep.
And she was very supportive of just keeping her in the loop of what needs to happen would be really helpful.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if Winters, Senator Winters has pulled a legislative number for this and submitted it, or if she's just in the thinking about it phase.
Good question. We're not aware yet of that. So I know that we have shared our fact sheets, our talking points on our behalf, and I know that Ann Rajewski from CASTA, she's shared that directly with Senator Winter. I think that her next step was to speak to the governor's office, just to feel their sense of whether or not this they can support it for a legislative change. But we haven't heard back. We're waiting to hear back. That was just sent earlier this week.
It's just amazing how quickly the legislative session goes, and if they haven't pulled a bill number at this point, it's
That
like,
may be a problem
yeah, it
because
becomes
it's kind
like,
of late
oh,
in
it's
the
a late
session.
bill. And-
That came up
Yeah.
in our conversation.
Right. So if we could maybe advocate as board members to, if that would be helpful. I sit on 2 regional transit authorities. And so this is, and we have over at Core Transit also a housing plan and trying to figure out how we can do this. And it right now does not include building, but in the future it might. So be happy to advocate if y'all think it would be helpful to talk with her.
I want to just extend that to us as well, to King County, but I think every municipality and county involved should be advocating on this, and we should be making a lot of noise here. And affordable housing, employee housing is such a key topic. They can't ignore this.
Right.
So let's push like hell for it.
Yeah, similar to the other questions, like who's had success, who's had challenges, what types of governmental entities, because this is gonna be core to our operations.
It only applies to regional transportation authority at this point. So they denied
Strange.
draft. It is strange. You know, that typically what we do is we have in our contracts, we allow the contractor to use draft as tax exemption certificate. And then they denied it. We had some conversations with them. Frankly, we felt we were a little bit misled in terms of what the process was. So what we did is went out and had RFTA buy its own materials. In the appeal, they denied RFTA, which is one of the entities that receives the sales tax, interestingly. And they denied that, and that's what we're taking it to appeal, is to challenge their decision.
It's almost like right hand, left hand. On one hand, we're saying, no, we need to break the barriers down for, and then the other hand, are like, oh,
Yeah,
putting them up, new ones almost.
frankly, I thought this was a 10-second telephone call to clarify. No, but they're not appreciative. I mean, I just don't understand. You know, the analogy is, well, this is like one of the municipalities on the near Denver that was denied its sales tax exemption in connection with golf carts. I really don't understand the connection there. To deny it, saying it was proprietary.
But it's amazing that school districts can provide housing and use the tax exemption when their primary focus is educating children, right?
Yeah.
And there's no, I mean, I understand our primary focus is transporting people, but you need to have people driving the buses, you need to have teachers teaching the classes, and so yeah, I have no idea why this person is picking on transportation as an issue, but I think the only reason we would not apply a lot of pressure is if Senator Winters were to hear that the governor's not in favor and he'll just veto it, right? Which would be really odd because he's really in favor of housing. So, but other than that, there's no reason we wouldn't encourage her to pull a late bill and get this. I mean, I don't want to apply pressure that it won't get us anywhere, but we should be applying pressure.
I was gonna say, if we should have a template of a letter ready to go. And then when the time is right, make it available to the board and whoever else wants to send one. But I just like having that in the quiver if we need to respond, because I wasn't quite understanding what you were saying there, Jeannie, but I agree. What you said at the end of it, we should
apply pressure.
I think that's what I heard. So I would recommend we do that. Thanks for that. Moving on.
Yes, just as usual, we have our various performance metrics here in the CEO report. Mike has a financial update at the end. We'd be happy to take any questions regarding that, if there are any.
Just wondering if we could put it up on the screen for people. Is it possible to get it on a Zoom somehow, or beyond my technical?
Can you? Yeah.
How are you doing? I'm doing good.
I was only like
You did a
10
good
minutes
job.
before you.
Did you just go down and?
It was sending me to clear out, but then it was clear. And then I got stuck right before 1:30. So
If that's not possible, don't worry about it.
I'm just going to step a little.
Yeah, I could just let you know, just right now, year to date, into January, we're up 2.3% overall ridership. We're continuing our slow climb out of the pandemic numbers, so I don't think there's anything yet really of note to share.
We surpassed pre-COVID, haven't we? Did we just this year?
We broke 5 million at the end of the year. Our high water mark, I believe, was 5.5 million. So we're still a little shy.
It's funny, when we had a report from our statistician and the forecaster the other day, and it looked like we had just crested the pre-pandemic level. So yeah, we're almost there.
All right, and that's what we have for the CEO report. Hopefully you all caught in the board packet that we do have a tour planned today of our new Glenwood maintenance facility. So after our presentations here, we'll transition to a bus that we've got waiting outside. We'll get you all over to our new facility and then bring you back to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. I think we're somewhere close to the end time. Not really.
Yeah, you're doing okay.
Are we okay? Up number 7, I've got presentation action items, resolution 2025-11, acceptance of a covenant enforcement commission report. And take it away.
We've got Abby Pasco and Meredith.
I mean, you should
Welcome.
click on that link. Just go over.
Could you just preface this? How long have we been, just for the audience, because since we have an audience here, how long have we maintained the and the rights of way? Just a little bit of history, so it doesn't seem like something new.
Yes, I'll do my best. I may have to phone a friend
Angela.
on that. Is Angela here? Hey, Angela, why don't you come up here? She can speak to the years that when the rail corridor was under ownership of RFTA. And as RFTA became an entity, RFTA and RFTA merged into the organization. But I'll let
Sorry to put you on the spot, Angela, but it's great to see you again.
It's good to see you too. RFTA actually started acquiring the railroad corridor in 1991. Took them until 1998 to actually close on the acquisition of the railroad corridor. They actually purchased it with the intent of running rail in the corridor. That's what they wanted it for. But CDOT was in the middle of studies to determine what was our alternative at that time, and that's how we came out with BRT. So that tells you how long it takes us to get to a point where we actually have a project. RFTA has actually been in charge of the corridor since 2001, when the two entities were merged. And so the first comp plan was done by RFRA in 2000. And then RFTA did the first comp plan in 2005. So we've been babysitting and making sure we're meeting the intent of the Covenant Enforcement Commission and the GOCO grant that we received for it since 2004.
And it began 35 years ago.
It began 35 years ago.
Okay, and then that's all for now. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Just so.
And then just so you all
This
know,
may be new to some people.
Tom Newland has been doing our third-party consultation on the corridor for the entire time that the Covenant Enforcement Commission's been in place. So there's no one that has more history than Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Glad you're here. Okay, ready for our report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And RFTA board members. Tom, I'm gonna introduce you in just a second.
Okay.
Brett and I and Tom are here to present the annual findings from the report that we did for the Covenant Enforcement Committee for 2024. I was gonna give you a history, but Angie just did that, so I'll just introduce Tom and move on to his report.
That's pretty good. All right.
Go ahead.
So, first of all, thanks, everybody. Hello, Tom Newland, Newland Project Resources, board members. We did our annual review of the corridor in September this year, I believe, and it was just beautiful. You can look at the picture here. Perfect fall day, highs maybe in the mid-70s, right? And the leaves were coming out. It was just a beautiful, beautiful 2 days. You can go to the next slide. We now look at the corridor as a whole, all the way up and down, but there are 9 conservation areas that are part of the GOCO grant obligation, which I'm illustrating here on this map. They start out just south of Glenwood and move their way up, all the way up to the Woody Creek Road, the terminus of the corridor that RFTA owns. Okay. So I'm going to go through those different corridors and just, either on or off of the conservation areas. And tell you what we found and what we didn't find this year, which basically is no new infractions, which was the first thing that ever happened. Anyways, the first section here goes through Glenwood Springs and to area number 1, and there were nothing happening down here, no old infractions to take care of and no new ones. Same with area number 1, which runs, where does that one go? Oh yeah, from the Rosebud Cemetery down to the old Buffalo Valley area. People are familiar with that. Then we go on up to the next section, which is off of a conservation area and runs down south. No new infractions there at all. Carry on. The area number 2 here, which kind of runs where the Iron Bridge Golf Course is, up to the CMC Road. This is a really nice stretch, I think, because it's down below the highway and it just really gives the user a sense of privacy. And I just like this section a lot for some reason. No new infractions here as well. Go ahead. This section runs from that last conservation easement up to the next and is pretty much in the area of the development Sanders Ranch, as it was originally called, the development that never happened. Wanted to have a golf course there, but it never happened. And there were no infractions here. There's a berm in this area I'll show you later, which I'd like to talk a little bit about, but go ahead, Abby. Area number 3 is a short section in an oxbow on the river here. And there's no new infractions in here. Kind of goes in between a rest area and a outhouse facility, not a house, but the tree that we have on the corridor there. Next section goes in front of Aspen Glen. That's not a part of the conservation easements. We used to have a problem here with their sign. They added a little bit of landscaping into the corridor, you know, not shrubs or anything, just plants, flowers. And I believe that has been corrected. Area number 4 runs from Aspen Glen down to just past the confluence of the Crystal River. Another beautiful stretch. Nothing in that area. And then the next conservation easement area essentially runs. Oh, no, this is not a conservation. In between the 2 areas there down next to the tank. Nothing there. The next conservation area is the crossing of the river with the railroad bridge. We used to have some stuff going on there with vagrants and graffiti, but nothing there, nothing new to report. You guys did do some substantial work on this bridge. It was failing and it was closed when we went by it, but this is just kind of a picture of it under construction. That abutment was, or pier, I guess it was, right, Brent, was pretty bad. Brent will talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure. Next, please. This next section runs down County Road 100 out of Carbondale, and it's not in a conservation area, but there was an infraction there where that star is on the page, and I have some pictures of that, I believe, that come up next on the next slide. And that was a potential encroachment of a parking area for, mobile home store, a rental storage area that the adjacent owner had placed, and it's really, really close to the corridor. In fact, some of the fill is in the corridor, we believe, but it has been revegetated over time. The last year or so, the grass has been coming back, so it looks a little better.
How wide is the right of way in there? Can you rattle that off? Is it fairly consistent, the width of the right of way, the easement?
Actually, in that area, it kind of goes from 200 next down to 100 and then goes back out. It's pretty strange. You can kind of see it right here where it jogs. Actually, it jogs. It doesn't get narrow, but you can see how it jogs right there. But your staff went out there and got it surveyed, and you can see that survey stake on the right. I'm sorry, right photograph is like right on where they stopped. So that's still there, and it's been grown in, and it's being utilized as a storage for RVs. The next section is an area, conservation area, that runs from Catherine's store down to Emma. There was one infraction in there I'd like to talk about. Not a new one. It's on the next slide, I believe. Yes, it's the famous berm and barn that has been in the corridor since I started doing this study, and even before. The owner has relocated the berm, which is a good thing, but the barn is still kind of sticking out in the corridor a little bit. You know, I might have a picture that shows how the berm's been relocated on the next slide. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see where there's a fence line over there to the left. That's where the berm used to be. And it's been pushed back essentially by the owner to be removed from the corridor. All right.
Sorry, can I
So
ask
the
a quick
next,
question about that?
I'm sorry.
This regarding, if we have an incursion like that, do we contact the owner and try to talk them off the?
That's the plan, Abby, or
Have they talked about the cost of doing that, or?
They've been told that it has to be removed by June.
By this June?
I mean, they've been told
It's been going on.
prior, and we've had show cause meetings with them, tried to work it out. And they've agreed, but they haven't followed through.
Is it a matter of financial hardship?
I think it's abstinence, actually.
Abstinence,
But
okay.
it is, I think, am I correct, the barn's close to falling down?
The barn is close to falling down. Based on recommendations from the Covenant Enforcement Committee a couple years ago, we came up with a plan to mail letters to the adjacent property owners and give them a 2-year time frame to remove the encroachments. At that point, if they're not removed, then RFTA staff or a contractor will remove them and invoice them for the cost of the removal. So we're their 2-year time frame ends in June of this year.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember we've talked about this. But
yeah.
thank you.
And I'm sorry, board members, I'm very hard of hearing, and I forgot my microphone. I didn't want to turn back, so bear with me, I'm sorry. The next section, area 7, runs from Emma past the Basalt High School down through the Roaring Fork Club. We noticed one infraction that's still there where the star is, right down next to the Wingo Bridge over the Roaring Fork. And that is, we noticed this last year, the year before, and we were wondering what the heck it was. Because as you can see in the distance, the Roaring Fork Club has a crossing there, asphalt crossing, and we were just wondering what that was. So Brent and Abby got to the bottom of it, and it turns out that that's part of their cross-country ski system on the golf course, which I believe is open to the public, but I'm not sure. So Brent talked to them, I believe, and they got rid of that, and I think they've replaced it in the next slide with something a little less apparent, which are some old railroad ties across, which seem to work out just as well. So we got that one solved. Next section is not in a conservation area. It crosses the Wingo Bridge and goes down past the Samuelson subdivision. And there's 2 previous infractions I'd like to show you. First one generally is that the Samuelson subdivision lots that are adjacent to the right-of-way have encroached with lawn improvements and in some cases small sheds. So those 5, 6, I think there's 7 lots there, 5, 6 or 7 are encroaching on the right-of-way. I think I have a picture on the next slide that shows you how that looks. It's basically, if you're looking at the right-of-way here, you can see this particular lot has a nice sunning chair there, and that's basically where the right-of-way ends, is out there in the middle of the lawn. I think I have another infraction here too towards the end of it, and that's this new access ramp that was put in by an adjacent property owner. Now, we have plenty of these up and down the corridor. I don't know, could be as many as 50, I don't know. But this one kind of sticks out because it's pretty industrial, and someone could actually mistake it for the trail. So that's why I brought it up as a concern. And here it is today. It's been grown in a little bit more. It's got some weeds going, but basically in the same condition. Area number 8 is next, runs from Lazy Glen down past the Dart Ranch open space. And we did have an infraction there at the open space area that I'd like to show you. It was noticed last year. You can see the last 2023 photo on the left, and it was a utility line, electric line that went to a pump house for irrigation. The photo on the right is this year, and you can see it's revegetated pretty well. But I'll let staff talk a little bit more about this one. And then a conservation area runs from the non-conservation area, I'm sorry, from the Dart Ranch on up to past the Phillips Trailer Park. No infractions in this area. And then the last conservation area from Phillips on up to the terminus of Raftone right away at Woody Creek Road. No infractions here either. So, no new violations were observed. We have like 5 left that are still hanging out there and being addressed. I think we're doing really good. I don't think I've ever had a year where we didn't have a new infraction. When we first started, there were 20 or 30 of them. So this is very good progress, I think. Just want to show you some shots along the way. Wildlife, coyote out in the field. Turkeys crossing the right. This is this berm I was talking about that is at the old Sanders Ranch. The wet summer we had has really made the revegetation efforts successful all over the corridor. This one especially with the rabbit bush that's actually coming back. That was a bare dirt earth moving berm when it was first placed, and I think 2008, I believe. Just really looking good. Okay.
Got it?
And then this surface, you guys put a new surface in here back behind Catherine's store. I think this is the ideal surface. You've got about 8 feet of, or to maybe 10 feet in this area of hard asphalt, and then you've got the crusher fines that have been compacted down on either side. It just makes for a lot safer experience, especially with the bike pedestrian interface. I liked it a lot. Goats are back at it. They're just doing a great job as usual. And finally, we actually saw a violation in progress while we were going. And this is right at the east end of Main Street in Carbondale. That was that $1 million lot or whatever it was, that little triangle there. They're starting to build on it, and they were throwing stuff onto the right of way so that they could dig. So Brent went out there and let them know what was happening. And when I came back down Valley, the stuff was off of the corridor. We always have problems with ditches. This is one where we, with the cooperation, I guess, of the ditch owner, or maybe not, where we put in, you guys put in some new asphalt, but also took the time to put in a small berm to stop. The reason why you had to put new asphalt in is that's because that ditch was leading into the corridor and undermining the surface. And we still have ditch problems here and there. As you can see, it'll come out and come up onto the right of way. Always something to maintenance. This is another water problem, a natural one with Roaring Fork River was eroding into the corridor there. So had to do a pretty substantial riprap operation, which I think looks great and is very effective. And then finally, I spotted this one. It's kind of a siphon, I think, for a irrigation ditch that we had never noticed before. And I didn't put it on as a violation. I showed it to Brent. And it's just little things that kind of show up. I didn't know if it was there or how long it was there, but noticed it this year, so. It was under the corridor and out. And then finally, that camper had been there for a while, and I'm not sure if they're living in it there or if it's just a temporary thing, but this is something that you're probably gonna have to watch out for in the future, especially with the housing situation that we have in this valley. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Abby, anything else?
Yes, I just need to get our last couple slides up. I'm sorry.
What happened?
I thought it was part of your shirt. It looks great.
So we just have a couple slides that we're gonna go through. We're not gonna repeat everything that Tom just presented to you all. But the main few points are, again, we had no new violations last year. We were able to remedy some, and we have ongoing violations and some staff concerns that Brett will touch base on. Overall, we're making progress and we're ensuring that the corridor is protected. So the two main violations that were remedied that I'm gonna show you all is the berm, as Tom mentioned, but also this trash enclosure has been in the right of way for almost as long as the berm has been, but we were able to get that removed out of the right of way this year as well, with the same process that we did with the berm. And then, as mentioned previously, the barn does still remain, but they have until June of this year to remove that. The main item of note on this slide is that we are making progress in the covenant areas. However, there are still many encroachments outside of the 9 covenant areas. And within the next year, staff is going to be identifying and coming up with a plan on how we're going to remedy those throughout the entire corridor as well. And I'm going to hand you guys off to Brett to discuss his ditch concerns with you all.
Okay, thanks, Abby. So yeah, so there's definitely some ditch concerns, but before I get into that, I just wanted to kind of preface that with my goal is to work collaboratively with these ditch companies, not to attack them or pursue litigation or any of those things. They have a right to be in the corridor, but obviously this photo is 1,000 words. There's a significant leak overtopping and it's impacting our property. So definitely want to approach this from a problem solving and collaboration standpoint. But we have several areas where ditches are leaking. Water is either going under the corridor, over the top of the corridor, flooding the corridor, et cetera. And so there's definitely some safety concerns associated with this. Trail users aren't accustomed to finding water across the whole trail. And once that water goes away, we're left with silt and sand, and that's a slippery surface. So it just leads to more maintenance costs, more safety concerns, more risks. So, and it also could perhaps impact the future use of the property.
Can I ask before you switch? Just want to ask, maybe Paul would answer this, just regarding ditch rights versus our right of way. How does that work? What's the relationship there?
Well, what we've started to do is find out who is responsible for the ditches. And Scott Miller, who we rely on for water advice, water council advice, is providing us with that information, and we're hopeful that we can speak to them and come up with solutions. So that's an initiative that we started about 6 months ago, and we brought Scott into the meeting that we have on a regular basis of all the trail, state trail PUC lawyer and a federal, these are railroad attorneys, so we're trying to operate as a railroad should be, which we should do under the Rail Bank program, and then we brought in Scott into the discussion. So the next step, I think, is to find out who is responsible for the ditches that are causing the problem, and then to meet with them and try to work out something. Because this, what you're seeing on the screen, is not acceptable ditch ownership situation.
Ramsey would agree with that. Thanks, Brett. Go ahead. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. And just another picture of what we encountered this summer. So we were doing a pretty significant asphalt repair project. A lot of it was along Hookspur Road. And during our repair project, we encountered a situation where our swale adjacent to the trail was completely full of water. And it was pretty much all summer long. It was pretty consistent. And so we were trying to install some root barrier to prevent the roots from all those trees from damaging our asphalt. And while we were doing that trenching, it was apparent that our subgrade was just completely saturated. And asphalt and water don't really get along that well. So, the goal would be to eliminate the water from being right next to our infrastructure and to reduce those, the premature, destruction of the asphalt. So the goal would be to reduce maintenance costs, save money, and get that water in a ditch where it really belongs. And so, unfortunately, we had to kind of pick up and reevaluate. We didn't get to repair this section of asphalt, so don't be surprised if you're biking along Hookspur this summer and you encounter a piece of asphalt that's bumpy. We just didn't feel like we should throw money at that problem until the root of that problem was addressed. And in the next slide, I'll show you what we attempted to do to address this problem. So essentially, the problem was, like I said, all that water next to the asphalt, degrading that asphalt prematurely. So the solution was to move that water as far away from the trail as we could. We wanted to stay within our property boundaries and not encroach on our neighbors. And so what we did when the water got turned off in October was we removed a lot of cottonwoods. A lot of them were failing, leaning over the trail. So there were some safety concerns already. So it was a good opportunity to remove those trees. And then we essentially dug a new ditch. And so there's a culvert, if you can see that brown stake, just to the right of that orange cone, there's a culvert that goes under the Rio Grande Trail, and that connects to a culvert that goes under the Eagle County Road. And so essentially we wanted to get that water to that culvert and eliminate all that flooding. And so that's just one potential solution. There's a lot of different areas that might require different solutions, but we're trying to figure out a way to save costs and reduce the amount of times that we've had to replace asphalt. There's certain areas in the corridor that are going to require more maintenance, just as a function of where they are. A lot of these ditches impact that. So we found that there's a few areas that we've actually had to replace the asphalt 3 times, whereas in other areas it's still the original asphalt. And so that's just proof that the water is really destructing the trail. And so this is just one solution. We haven't seen it in action yet. The water will get turned on in April, and hopefully it'll be a win-win-win for everybody, a win for the ditch company, a win for RFTA, and then a win for the trail users. And then the next slide is just kind of a bigger picture of that area. Again, Hookspur Road. And so all of the water is coming off these agricultural fields, coming down the hill where all the trees are, hitting our property, and then just kind of flooding. There was no longer a ditch channel for that water to be collected and organized and moved through the property. So, this is a system-wide issue. It's not super local. It's Rock Bottom Ranch area is kind of in the water table. So we'll continue to explore options, continue to try to work with these ditch companies, again, with the goal of having that win-win-win outcome.
So what we are looking for from you all today is your approval of the report as presented, so we can send a copy to GOCO as required by the GOCO agreement that's in place. Additionally, we're also just wanting a continued support for the encroachment removal process that we put in place a couple years ago.
And then we just would ask for your continued support as we kind of work through these ditch and water issues and coordinating with these ditch companies. just hope that you continue to support us.
Is this just a single resolution you're looking for? That will do this? Okay, so I've just heard, resolution.
Jeannie has a
Oh,
question.
sorry, go ahead, Jeannie.
Abby, could you, I've never heard the distinction of just these 9 covenant areas versus the whole trail. And so what's the difference there? Because I felt like we're supposed to be protecting the whole trail.
We are supposed to be protecting the whole trail. GOCO provided funding for the purchase of the corridor in 1997. And originally they had a conservation area placed over the entire 33 miles. That's very hard to maintain. And they were able to do an amendment and chose the 9 covenant areas that focus on the open space aspects of the corridor. We hold the same standards for all of the areas when we're maintaining the corridor, but we have to report on the 9 conservation areas to the committee and to the RFTA board every year.
So when you start looking at those areas outside of the area, the 9 areas, are we gonna suddenly have a whole lot more encroachments to deal with, or you're already dealing with them? Just a little confused.
A little bit of both. Some have been identified and others we don't know the full extent of the encroachments.
I just don't want us to go backwards, and we just had a year of celebrating. There were
I
no new
know.
encroachments, and then next year you're gonna say, oh, well. All right, I'm gonna have to remember it's because we weren't looking at the other area.
They're temporal. The encroachments are temporal. Remember that. Dave, did you have your hand up? Were you? No. Okay. Other questions? I'm going to look for a motion to accept the Covenant Enforcement Commission 2024 report, resolution number 25-11.
So moved.
In a second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Dory.
All opposed? Colin, go ahead.
I just wanted to share, I was on the tour, I recommend it for everybody, it's a great, I could only do one day, but it's, you learn so much from staff about what they're dealing with. I think the reorganization of getting more staff into the trail management side of RFTA is huge, thanks Kurt for doing that. It's a very small staff. This water issue could be very big, and I think we need to think creatively and also make sure that staff has the resources they need and Brett has the resources he need to make some changes. Like, it's public property, so sometimes people abuse it. They just figure no one's going to pay attention, and I think we've seen the advantages of having more staff time and more eyes on this in this past year. So thanks to staff. I also would love staff to bring something to the board. You might remember the Colorado Extreme crossing of our trail down on Catherine Store Road. It's a hockey rink, and they did a little jog, and they've had trouble with the revegetation of the disturbance, and staff doesn't have a lot of tools to deal with that. They want to be partners, they want to move forward in that, and I think we should allow them, if there are going to be changes to from a property owner to the corridor in some shape or form, that there's some kind of bond that they have to put down, so that if they don't follow through, RFTA and staff now has the resources to actually go and do it. Instead of it's almost like we're begging for people to do the right thing, which is really unfortunate. And I'd love to make sure that this the staff that deal with the trail, that are dealing with all kinds of property ownership issues, have the resources they need to preserve the trail and make sure it's safe for everybody who uses it.
Point well taken. Tom had a comment.
I totally agree with Colin on the staff part of it. It's like night and day with the new staff that we have now that can manage the trail and slowly do it. It's really made a big difference. And I also, I think Gabby may be doing this, want to invite you guys to come with us this year. We've already got it scheduled, right?
I realized that I did not put that in the slide, but that would have been great to add at the end of the slide is the days of the
It's
assessment.
August.
It's in August.
End of August, but you should send it out to everybody and please join us. It's just a great day or two on the
It's on
trail.
an e-bike, so it's easy.
You don't have a date yet?
No, we do. I just forgot to include them in the
I can tell
presentation.
you.
I
You know what it is?
I didn't think about
Can you
that.
share that
It's
now?
in August. I
Yeah.
don't know the exact
Okay, got it. All right.
dates off the top of my head, but
A second here.
I'll send them to Nicole and then she'll
Great.
put it
Yeah,
all out there.
I'd like to do that.
It's the 21st and 22nd of August.
There you go.
That's Thursday and Friday. Please come.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along to item B, the Glenwood Maintenance Facility and Operations Center campus site inspection and tour.
Okay,
Pick this up.
yes, so we have a bus that we will summon here shortly. It'll pick us up outside the main entrance here. Like Murphy's Law, we are having a sewer issue over at our new property. So, and thank you to Glenwood Springs, Matt Langhorst and his crews. They're over there helping us right now.
They're awesome.
They're
I
awesome.
can't imagine that's a fun thing to deal with.
Yeah, it's of course today, the day that it happens, but we did have to turn our water off over there. So if anyone needs to use the restrooms, we encourage you to do it now before we head over there. And when everyone's ready to go, we'll get the bus brought around. You can leave your stuff here in the room if you like. The staff here at the facility said they'll keep the room secure for us. And we will be returning to the room to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Hey, Greg? Yeah. So it's
Recording.
going. Okay, folks, we're gonna get started and end this thing. Issues to be considered at the next meeting. Anything else you want to, we'll hear about it, I guess, right? Anything else you want to bring up? Next meeting is March 13th, 8:30 a.m. in person in Carbondale, or via WebEx. And other than that, I think we're done. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Would you like to repeat that, Colin? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we're out. Thank you all. That
Thanks
was-
so
thank
much.
you very
That was
much.
great.
Thank you for taking
Thank
that.
you. That was well worth that field trip.
It was, yeah, that was great.